I'm Renee, host of Roots of Faith. Today we're in Denham Springs, Louisiana, where Catholic worship began with a railroad car, the chapel car, that would visit here once a month and say Mass to roughly 12 families living in this area. From there, this area was served by the priests from Baton Rouge as a mission of St. Joseph. And then around 1920, it became a mission of St. Margaret in Albany. At that point, the Oblates of Mary Immaculate, an order that serves the poorest of the poor, was given the jurisdiction and administration of all of Livingston Parish. From its very beginnings, this parish grew to the point where in 1960 it was made an independent parish with 300 families. So join us as we explore this large, growing parish of Immaculate Conception, along with its mission of Sacred Heart in Livingston. I have as my guest today Father Frank Uter. Father Uter, thank you for joining us today to talk about your parish here.
And, it's great to be with you.
And we can't forget to mention this is, besides Immaculate Conception Parish, you do have a mission as well.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, though, because you had a recent milestone, and it was celebrated here.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm a native of Baton Rouge, and I was raised in Baton Rouge. I went to Catholic High, and I was ordained in 1969 by Bishop Tracy. And I have served in the greater Baton Rouge area almost all my life. I went to Baker, St. Thomas More, New Roads, the Cathedral, then 12 years on the River Road, and I've been here for 10 years.
Has it? That's awesome.
But if you put all those assignments together, it comes up to 50 years.
That's right.
So I celebrated in May of 2019, my 50th anniversary. So it was wonderful. And both of our bishops were there. Bishop Fobb came.
Oh, great.
Incidentally, I even had the opportunity to teach Bishop Fobb ninth grade religion when I was in New Roads.
Oh, no.
So,
how amazing is that?
And so we had a number of priests and parishioners from all over came. And it was, oh God, it was just wonderful.
Yeah, I saw plenty of pictures and helped them to find pictures of you early on through our archives. But tell us a little bit about this wonderful parish. So this is a big parish.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the demographics and families. You have 3,800?
I've been here for 10 years, and we have fluctuated a bit because of the flood.
Oh, that's true.
But we had reached 4,100 families.
Wow.
So we had stabilized pretty much at 4,100 families for a couple of years. With the flood, we went down a bit, and then we came up again. So we're right around 4,000.
That's awesome.
Give or take a little.
And you're big. It's like 275 square miles. I mean, this is a big
Yes.
the
way
parish.
the parish is set up, you have on the fringe of Livingston Parish, you have French Settlement, Whitehall, Albany, Springfield, that kind of circle the southeast border of Livingston Parish. We have everything else.
That's right.
So the townships of Walker, Watson, Livingston, they're all part of the parish here. So we have, it's funny sometimes we'll go out on a communion call, and Father Rouge and I joke about that because some of these addresses will take us through the woods, down gravel roads, and back where we're afraid that the road is even going to stop before we get there. And it's interesting to go on communion calls, sick calls here in the parish because the demographic is just so spread out.
And you know, my husband and I worked on, we were part of the baptism community here, baptism preparation, and we used to make home visits. So I can totally relate with visiting some of these addresses. But this particular region it is comparably different from a lot of our older parishes, like along the River Road when you were in St. Michael and that tri-parish area along the Mississippi River, because this region was settled much, much later, really not until the railroads, the East-West railroads came through.
Yeah.
And then your mission in Livingston was a result of the timber business in the early 1900s.
Right.
Workers came up from Garyville, Louisiana, which sits directly south of Livingston.
Right.
And after it was timbered, the settlers stayed. But this was originally part of British territory, and very few Catholics living in this area.
Very few. At the turn of the century, we had 12 Catholic families that were the core, that were identified as parishioners. And then over the years it grew, but it grew rather slowly. But after Katrina, it really took off because with Katrina, we had so many people coming from Chalmette and from all over the place. And so they actually had some communities from Chalmette that developed new subdivisions.
Oh, wow.
So they could live on one street exactly like they lived before, with the same neighbors and everything. I mean, and so we do have one or two little subdivisions like that are actually Chalmette. And but they came with a strong faith. They were welcomed by the people here, and they really are identified as part of the parish now. And the demographics, we had a year or two ago, we had a program at the Catholic Life Center, Continuing Formation, and I believe the U.S. Census at the time said the average age in Livingston Parish was something like 38.8 years.
Wow.
So it's a relatively young parish. So it's just really good.
We're standing inside this beautiful church, and I believe this structure was built in the 1970s, but it has been enhanced and redone over the years. And there's been some new things that you have brought, such as the windows of the church. Tell us a little bit about the newest. Is that the newest thing that's been done?
That's the newest thing. The church was built in 1976, and in the 1980s, Father Cleo did a lot of refurbishing and really beautified the church. And around 2016, we installed the marble floors and did a little more renovations. But my pride and joy are the windows, because the windows tell a story. And, you know, that was the origin of all stained glass windows, to tell a story. And I love telling the story to our youth, our PSR students and all, because these windows tell such a marvelous story. They begin with creation. The first window is the Alpha. The last window is the Omega. And so throughout the church, you have the very beginning of creation. Everything was darkness. You have the Alpha. And then you have everything that goes to make up creation, the birds, the fish, the trees, the light. And then finally, you have humanity. You have mankind being created. You can look at these windows in two ways, and that is what I think is so exciting. You can look at it in terms of the story of Genesis, the beginning of creation, then 6 days later. Or you can look at it in terms of creation, which is how I think the Lord looked at creation. He said, I am the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end. So we have the Alpha, the Omega, and then the last window. If you want to take the Genesis story, you see man coming out of the ground. If you want to look at it in terms of the Lord and the end of creation, the final coming, that is a beautiful window of the final resurrection, where men and women are rising from the grave. And so the way I teach it with the youth is pretty much the same way, that you can look at it in terms of the Bible and Genesis, or you can look at the big picture of creation, where the Lord is the beginning and creation is continuing until the very end, when we rise and creation is done with. But what ties it all together is the window in the foyer at the entrance of the church. Between the beginning of creation and the end, you have this road, which is, you might say, the road of life. And you have everybody in creation is traveling on this road. For us here at Immaculate Conception, it shows some of our history.
Yes,
you
the chapel
have
car.
the railroad car that was here at the turn of the century. You have the first church that was built in 1917. And in the center of all of this journey, we have the Eucharist. Everybody is journeying as a Eucharistic people. We're being strengthened by the Eucharist on that road. And of course, the Blessed Mother at the top she's our patroness. So these windows, I think, take everything in from the very beginning to the very end, and also have pictures of the in-between, our own personal history. Yeah. So it's easy, and I love doing that with the youth, is to try to have them picture themselves on that road and what is happening to them, what their life is, what their history is, and where they may fit on that road.
That's right.
So I think the windows continue to do in 2019 what stained glass windows were designed to do in the 12th and 13th centuries. And to me, it's a beautiful lesson. I love them.
They are, and they're beautifully done. Were they done locally?
They were done by Carol Lepori, a stained glass artist from Covington. And she's very kind, very patient. She comes and makes us simple. We tell her kind of what we might want, and she just draws what we've kind of come up with. And she shows it to us, we approve it, and then she makes it out of glass. So she is fantastic.
Well, they certainly are beautiful. I can remember sitting here many a Mass and looking out of plain glass windows.
Yeah, and you see on each side of the door, you have windows, and they represent Livingston Parish, because the two big, I don't want to say industries, but the two big means of earning a living in Livingston Parish have been timber and cattle. So on the bottom of the window, you have cattle guards, gates, and then on the top, you have all the green and the timber. So it represents Livingston Parish.
And that is so true. When CJ and I moved here to Livingston Parish in 1984, the property that we bought, we had cattle running loose. We were off of Lod Stafford Road, and there were cattle grates in the road, and we had, cattle that would just run free. So I can, even in today's world, I can relate to exactly what you're saying.
When this property was purchased, it was all enclosed. Part of it was a pond, part of it was pasture, part of it was woods, but they had a huge cattle gate on Hatchell Lane that let people into the property. And
kept the cattle out.
They kept the gate. The gate was saved all these years, from 1964 until the present day. And it was given to me a few years ago, and we put pillars up and we mounted it. We used it for the Year of Mercy. That was the gate we walked through when we started the Year of Mercy. And now we use it as a memorial to the Oblates who served here 100 years this year. They came in 1919, and they lived in Albany, and they served all of Livingston Parish from there.
Yeah, till the 80s when the diocesan priest
to the 83 when
took it over, correct.
Yeah.
And you had your picture taken, because now I understand the significance of the gate. I saw a picture of you with our two bishops flanked on either side for your 50th, and the gate is behind you. And I could see it was the property here. I'm going, where is that gate? young parish, and I know when I was here, you had a preschool, because my kids went to preschool here, but this is not, you don't have a school affiliated. There's no Catholic schools in Livingston Parish. Tell us a little bit about your, the physical layout of the property and what's involved.
Several years ago, we talked about the possibility of a parochial school, but the parish council felt strongly that we did not really need one. And one of the main reasons, a lot of people had moved to Livingston Parish because of the school system. So they were paying extra taxes to support the school system, and that's why they were here. But what we have tried to do is complement the school system of Livingston Parish with a really good religious ed program that goes from 2-year-olds all the way through the end of high school into adulthood. And so when the parish bought this property, the very first building to be built was a church. And the church was able to be divided into classrooms. So they would have religious ed in the classrooms, open the doors on Sunday, and have church. In '76, when this building was built, the old church was turned into a religious ed building. And it was used by our early learning center, and we have a waiting list, and we have classes from 2-year-olds all the way through 5-year-olds. And it's so beautiful because those little kids are brought here in the church periodically during the year for the different church seasons. They come here for their ashes. They come here to just have a little Bible talk. I give them a little talk. And they all know me. It's so great to hear all these little kids screaming, "Hey, Father Frank! Hey, Father Frank!" But they come here, and we do things with them, and we teach them. And I've read before that a lot of your attitudes about church and religion, about God, are developed at a very early age, not when you're in the 6th grade or high school. They're developed at a very early age. So we really put a lot of effort and energy into the early learning center so they can learn religious lessons for the rest of their lives. And so we do a lot of things with them here. So on the campus, we have this church that was built in '76. We have the Early Learning Center that was built in '64 as the first church. Between the two buildings, we have the administration building with a large hall, a small hall, and 2 meeting rooms. We need all of these meeting rooms because of all the different activities that are going on. In terms of faith formation, we don't consider our faith formation to be over with until the day God calls us. And so we built, about 5 years ago, we built the huge 2-story Faith Formation Center. It's a combination of classrooms. Some are smaller, regular classrooms. Others can open up to be larger rooms. We have meeting rooms. We have so many Bible studies for adults in the course of the week. And like we're having an extended program on Ignatian spirituality coming up. So we have something for all ages. Of course, we have our regular religion class, and we have 2 sessions on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to get all of the kids in. And but we've tried to arrange it that way so that if you have younger siblings and older siblings, they can all come on the same night.
Oh, right.
So that way you don't have parents running all over the place. So we have a lot of faith formation programs. The Faith Formation Center was the last facility to have been built on the campus. Everything is completed there with the exception of a large meeting room. I mean, really large, to be set up with electronics and all for move. And because we wanted to pay as we went, pay as you go. And so we built all that, and now we're preparing within the year to complete the building, the meeting room and a couple of classrooms. So the campus is well fixed for a number of years. And it's funny, with the flood took everyone by surprise. Mm-hmm. And every building on the campus flooded, including the church. Mm-hmm. However, when we built the Faith Formation Center, FEMA said that we had to raise the ground like 2.5 feet. And I was fussing my head off because we were spending all this money on dirt to build this building. And when the flood came, that's where Father Rouge and I lived for several days because you couldn't leave the property. And it was the only dry spot on campus. Oh, so we were living in the classrooms there. But everything is going really well now. We've restored everything since the flood, and we're just moving ahead. Now, in terms of ministries, everything here is not just formation ministries. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of outreach ministries. We have 2 programs that actually started. They're ecumenical programs, so I don't want to say they're from here. They're ecumenical programs, Mighty Moms, right, that provide food for needy children when they're not in school. Some of the original organizers of Mighty Moms were parishioners, mm-hmm. and they were on site here to give out food just up to a few months ago when they moved to a larger facility. Right. In addition, our outreach commission reached out to other churches to start what's called Community Hands. COMM capital U, NITY, Community Hands. And it has grown so much that we've actually received calls from some of the non-Catholic churches, some of the big mm-hmm. non-Catholic churches, saying, how do we become a part of this? Oh, wow, that's awesome. So it's yes. so wonderful to see the churches all coming together and work. They have Threads of Love, mm-hmm. where a number of women gather together to make baby clothes and do different things. I'm familiar with them. They actually sew clothes for premature babies because it's so hard to buy clothes for little preemies and newborns, mm-hmm. but it supports, that program is in other parishes too, and it supports all stages of what a mom might be going through, you know, with a pregnancy or the loss of a child or a premature baby coming in. Oh, so. Yeah, they do. It is so funny to walk into the large hall and see all these tables with sewing machines, and they're all going, blah, blah, blah. I said, it looks like one of these factories you used to talk about at the turn of the century, you know, where all the women were working, you know, in these factories. But it's a beautiful thing to see them doing this ministry. We've been talking about the physical campus here. Y'all do have an adoration chapel here though, as well, don't you? When the parish was established, we had a convent. We actually had sisters who taught here. And when the sisters left, the chapel was turned into an adoration chapel. And it's wonderful because it's open 24/7. Great. And a lot of the hours are covered by teams, not just one person. Good. And of course, we always can use more people. They have some hours with just one person, mm-hmm. and other hours that are just being filled with, you know, people volunteering. But in terms of committed adorers, we have nearly just about every hour committed. And that's awesome. It's a wonderful program, and it's a wonderful I know I feel so good. I go on Sunday mornings at 4, and it's a beautiful way to start Sunday and get ready for the day. And I go on Tuesday mornings, so
Great.
I like those early hours, and it really works well.
Good. And there is no Catholic cemetery per se on the grounds here. I'm not real sure about in Livingston Parish, so where
There
where
are
most
two
people buried?
major cemeteries that the parish serves. One is Denham Springs Memorial
Okay.
on Range. Denham Springs Memorial has been around for a long time. We've had it for ages. Relatively new is Evergreen Cemetery on Range, further up. It's a newer cemetery with, it's really well done. It's nice. But in addition to that, like on All Saints Day, we are going all over Livingston Parish because before these two big cemeteries were established and running, you had little family cemeteries and community cemeteries all over the place.
That's what I was kind of curious about.
And they're still
Active in
operating
there.
and active. So between the two priests and the deacons, on All Saints Day, we're all over the place because we're going to all of these little family cemeteries, and the people are gathering there.
Yeah, that's
And in the Livingston area, I've gone there once or twice. Usually one of the deacons goes, but I know the times I have been, I've gone to one cemetery and seen a bunch of parishioners there, and as well as other people, and then go to another cemetery and see some of the same people there,
goodness.
because they're all, they've got family everywhere, and they try to make them all.
That's great.
And it's a beautiful thing because the non-Catholics come also.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, Father Frank, we're out of time, so I want to thank you for being my guest today and helping everybody learn more about this fabulous parish that's out here in Livingston Parish.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And one thing I'd like to close with is our mission statement begins, we are a welcoming community rooted in the Eucharist. That's how it begins, a welcoming community. And that surely defines it. They're just wonderful.